All right, you want to start a business?
Well, I've always thought about it. I think the only true way to like massive financial success is to own a business.
Okay.
And technically, I am my own business now as a real estate agent, but it's hard to scale a real estate business because it's you, right? So you're kind of always on the clock. So I've always had thoughts, for a decade plus of starting a business. Kind of found myself with like not enough time to do it just because the real estate market was so busy. But now it's coming to a time where it's like, hey, I'm getting a little bit more serious about, actually trying to do something. So I thought, what better way to get the process started than to talk to somebody who has built from the ground up a monster business, just got into Costco, possibly across the country.
Possibly.
I don't know if you want to make it official yet or not.
It is official.
Yeah, so it's unbelievable.
We're gonna be.
We've been friends this whole process. I didn't even understand, what you were doing behind the scenes because you're kind of quiet about it. You just kind of move in silence and you don't brag too much.
I don't really know a whole lot going on behind the scenes either.
Just kidding. But watching you.
Yeah, we got people doing it now and.
Clark's
for sure, spearheading it and everything. But yeah,
you built up the team.
So that's
which is amazing. So. I have some questions, right? It's kind of like I have some ideas. I'm just kind of poking around. I don't really. It's a very generalized conversation, but like, somebody like me
get into the idea too. Like I
think I always have ideas. So this
or get into the one that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
I think again, context is important for people. I think people would actually find it interesting.
Yeah. So I'm a coffee connoisseur. I love coffee. I'm drinking
connoisseur.
Well, I use that term loosely.
Okay.
I like coffee a lot, but
which before we even get into this. You fucked me up on coffee.
I got you into
it. I never drank coffee before.
Yeah.
But when we started going to Florida and going other places looking for property, you started getting me these Starbucks things, and I don't drink Starbucks.
I'd force feed you the flat whites.
The flat white, man. Like now I have I'm just coffee all day. I love the taste of it.
That's what I mean. Because if you go to certain spots, Dunkin' Donuts, Tim Hortons, or whatever, some average coffee shops, it's for a certain demographic. But when you have good coffee, you can become addicted, right? Coffee's addictive to begin with.
And I really like those flat whites are good. Don't get me wrong. They're really high in calories. You ever seen how many calories those things have?
I don't want to look.
It's like fucking...
The milk's got a lot of calories.
It's well over 300, by the way. But what I like is I have one of those espresso machines at home. And I have there's like a setting between Americano or espresso, Americano, and coffee or whatever. I can't remember the rotation of it. But I have the coffee. So it's like very strong and it's vanilla hazelnut. Love it.
Nice.
Love it.
The flavor of the coffee is vanilla hazelnut?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Love it. My favorite one.
Nice.
Yeah.
See, that's what I mean. So you have a machine.
Yeah.
Now, this is my journey has been started off with your basic coffee. Didn't care. Just went to the store, bought whatever. Started having some good coffee, whether like at a friend's house or at a coffee shop. And it's like, oh my God, these beans at the store, they're not fresh. They're just whatever. I want some good beans, right? So start shopping around. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's...
I don't know, to be honest.
Yeah, the freshness, the shelf life is like 30 days for fresh roasted beans, right? So you start to realize, oh, my God, there's good coffee, bad coffee. You start to getting into espresso drinks and different flavors. And then, I can't just go buy regular beans anymore. So I've been shopping around for beans, and I go to a couple of local spots, and I'm like, oh, my God, this business kind of sucks.
Really?
They got no technology. They're always sold out of stuff that I want. The customer service is weak. I don't even know why they have a storefront in a way. If they didn't have a storefront, maybe they could charge less money. So my wheels are turning. Is there a way to do this better, and do it online, right? And watching you build your business, which is I think relatively similar to any sort of production or food production business or coffee production, whatever. There's so many options that you could take. And my question to you was, where do you get started, right? Because you can get started with like a small coffee roaster and do a couple bags at a time. Or you could get started with like a giant $50,000 roasting machine.
Yeah.
And, so that's kind of the debate when you even have an idea is when you think, because I was thinking like big time, right? Warehouse space, coffee roaster, production, all this stuff, because it brings your costs down, cost per unit. And it brings your margins up in theory, but then you have no customer base, whatever. So when the goal is that big, it's actually so scary that you might not ever get started after having a quick conversation with you. So take me through how you kind of got the process started, what advice you'd have for somebody like me or somebody that just kind of has a budding idea.
Yeah, so I think I think the key here is the fact that you actually do have, some capital to start with. Okay, so I don't think that you're the norm. Okay, so let's I guess take your situation out of the equation. Say, for example, if somebody doesn't have, and I actually think that taking your situation out of the equation, the fact that you have like startup capital is the best way to look at how to start a business, because
pretending you don't have the capital to just go all out.
Exactly, like to go all out or whatever, right? Because number one, it's going to be more relatable to whoever is listening to this, number one. And then number two, it's probably the most efficient way to actually start a business. So number one, I'll get into the way that I started. I started in my basement doing all the work myself, hand blending stuff with like in a pail with gloves. Okay, so I wasn't like actually.
What do you have to blend for
protein?
Yeah, so if you were importing protein, or I don't know how the business works, but
yeah,
what's the blend? What are you doing?
So you have like the raw material protein, you have the flavoring, you have the sweetener, you have excipients like xanthan gum, and xanthan gum is like a natural gumming agent which will actually produce. Jesse's pulling up in my Porsche right now. Xanthan gum is like a natural thickening agent. So protein, if without certain thickening agents, or depending on really the raw material and the type of protein. So say, for example, if you have an isolate, it'll blend very thin, almost like you're drinking like flavored water. But a lot of people don't like that. They'd rather have some sort of like shake kind of good mouth feeling taste, right?
Some texture
and stuff like that. So you put a thickening agent without it adding any calories like you would a thickening agent, say even like creamer or something like that. Xanthan gum is like an agent. So, I believe in some of our products we add like sea salt, which adds a good, sweet and salty kind of mouthfeel, which is, very tasty. So stuff like that, you have to mix all of those things together. It's just like any kind of, you're making dinner at home. How do you make dinner at home? Yeah. You take the ingredients, you say a stir fry, you put all the ingredients, cook it up, mix it up together, and then you got a finished product, right? Mm-hmm. So that's basically what I did in the beginning. Is I just came up with a solution, a benchtop formula that I would taste test myself. Like we actually just taste tested a sample product here as an example. You just come up with like a recipe and you start shifting those particular ingredients until you hit and you think it's a good product. You have some sort of, people like you, what you and I just did, like a focus group or whatever you want to call that. And hey, tastes great, doesn't taste good, do this. It's too sweet, back off the sweetener. It's too thick, back off the thickening agent or whatever. It's too salty, back that off, or add more. It's like nothing different than formulating dinner for tonight. It is no difference. Mm-hmm. But moving forward, or having said that, the fact that I started so efficiently, so small, developed these, I want to say pilot products, offered them to friends and family. They really liked it. It just scaled organically from there. That's how I feel somebody, that doesn't have any startup capital, that's the right way to go.
Take me through that scaling organically process. Like you start off with your own taste buds, theoretically, give a couple samples to some family and friends. Yeah. They say, yeah, I like it, whatever the case is. Do you start kind of selling to them, or are you like, okay, I'm going to take this, and like, how do you get customers to start?
So I ended up, the first route that I went was, I started selling to some friends, like, I'm pretty sure like bots and a couple guys that were working out, they would just like buy protein from me or whatever. And then I eventually started selling like under the counter at gyms. So obviously, a buddy from back in the day owned a gym, and I would sell protein underneath his counter. He'd take a cut, I'd take a cut. And, I was finding out it was a very good segue into figuring out whether or not I had a business there or not, or people liked the product, right? And in the beginning, you're going to have to take some concessions, right? You're going to have to, maybe sell the product for cheaper, or, how are you going to get that product into people's hands? How are you going to convince these people to take that product, right? Mm-hmm. You're not going to come out with a product. Like, here's the thing. You or I are not The Rock or Taylor Swift or whatever the fuck. We're not going to be able to come out with a product that all of a sudden, like, this is one of the reasons why I'm so hell-bent on producing my own personal brand, is not because I just like want to be out there. I don't want to be out there. I don't want to communicate any of the stuff that I'm doing. I don't enjoy doing it. What I want to do is I want to build my personal brand as large as possible, so that when I have something to sell, it's hitting enough people that just by the masses, I'm going to have a customer base for whatever type of product or service I offer. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's the key. Now, how do you or I, before having that established brand, personal brand or whatever, sell a product? It's going to have to be concessions. You're going to have to take a haircut on the sale price or the selling price. You're going to have to give out free samples. You're going to have to, pump some money into marketing dollars. You're going to have to go to, retailers maybe in town that might be interested in selling your products. Like, one of the ways that I would think, so say for example, if you're producing this at home, like, remember earlier we were talking about, and I said, listen, like, I don't think you should have a warehouse. I don't think that you should start big. You should not buy the biggest roaster. What you should do is get like a benchtop roaster, make pilot runs of your product, and then sample them out, give them to people, like, whoever. I'll try it, give it to other people that like coffee, and make pilot runs of your product for people to sample. Then once people start enjoying it, they start liking it, then you start, well, hey, listen, you could buy this bag for X amount of dollars. You start up a website. The website, you start advertising that particular website. But in order for that type of stuff to grow organically, you're borderline going to have to, number one, you're going to probably have to hit the payment. Like, I could see how coffee might be a little bit different, because there is a lot of people. I'm trying to think if I were to start Canadian Protein a little bit different now. Because when I started Canadian Protein, it was, number one, it was a very different time, okay? So one of the things that you're going to run into is that there's a lot of brands, like coffee brands, right? Like craft coffee brands, I'm going to imagine. I see it all the time, correct? Am I wrong? Yeah. Okay, so what's going to be your differentiating factor? You're going to have to pick a differentiating factor. Have you thought of like what any kind of differentiating factors out in the market that you'll be able to have? Like what are these guys? So this is, I feel like we got to back up a little bit. When you're going in and buying coffee, there's a couple ways to figure out how to start a business. And what you explained, that when you walk into a coffee shop, number one, their service is shit. Their product isn't as good.
Marketing is atrocious.
So there's a couple ways to start a business. Number one, you have to look for within your own life and figure out, okay, well, number one, what do I really like? What do I think that I have in how can I explain this? What in my life do I consume on a regular basis that I enjoy, but I think that I'm not being offered the right level of service? The product is shit. And then what do I think in terms of that product or service that I can do better? What can I offer the marketplace as a better product or service, and what can I do better, right? So, or what do I wish was in the marketplace that doesn't exist? Mm-hmm. So then I create that product and fill that void. So there's a couple things here. So obviously we're not reinventing the wheel here with your coffee concept. What we're going to do is we have to improve it. So what are the differentiating factors that you'd have to come to market with and improve? Because if we're talking, the service is shit, right? And the product is shit. Well, the service aspect of it is eradicated because we're not going to do brick and mortar, right? It's an inefficient way to sell your product. Okay, so brick and mortar's out of the window. So eradicate the sales aspect of it. Okay, so because the service is shit, so then now is it product? Better quality product? Well, how do you communicate that it's a better quality product? Because everybody and their fucking mother communicates a better quality product,
Yeah, no,
Right?
100%. I think it would be community. So I think the places with the storefronts, they have to charge more for the coffee. So the prices are high.
Yeah.
Right. Even if it's good, it's like, well, $24 for a 1 pound bag of coffee is crazy.
Yeah.
Take away the storefront, have a more efficient operation. And, probably to start, you wouldn't have margins at all, right? You're just kind of giving it away, hoping to break even probably.
Mm-hmm.
But if you do it to scale, and if you get to scale, then you can get the margins. One thing for myself as well, like my nature is to like only do things right? Like you were hand testing things until you found the perfect mix. That's just my nature. I can't do it half-assed. I can't do a roast that didn't meet my standards. I can't do poor marketing. I can't, right? I can't offer a bad experience. It's not in my nature. So I just think over time, that would show through in whatever business that I saw, like even with real estate. Like I don't half-ass anything.
So the problem with, you will never, how can I explain this? Don't ever try to differentiate your product or service by price.
To start. Like you're saying. Yeah.
Like I would never do it. You'll never be able to do it because there's always going to be somebody that's going to be able to trump you in terms of price, or it's going to be a race to the bottom.
Yeah.
That's the worst.
I do agree.
Yeah, that's the worst differentiating factor that you could possibly do. So
I think there is overpriced though. I think there's a right price.
100%. I totally agree.
And there's overpriced.
But what happens if here's the thing, like what you should do is go after your product having the best value. Okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Great point.
So value, but
Yeah.
value doesn't necessarily mean price. Pricing is an aspect of value, but it's not the differentiating factor necessarily. So in terms of offering great value to people, like I think you'll have to differentiate your brand from the rest of the pack and come up with something like maybe it's a brand dedicated to focus. Maybe it's a coffee bean that's dedicated to business professionals that require focus, or maybe it's the strongest coffee in the world, or it's something a little bit different. You're going to have to differentiate yourself from, I can't imagine strongest coffee, but that's a good example because I've seen a couple brands claim that they have the strongest coffee in the world. But I feel like if you truly want scale and you just don't want to be a mom and pop shop like a couple of the places around here, you will have to come up with a differentiating factor that isn't necessarily seen in the market, or you just do it better.
Yeah,
that's what's going to happen.
That's a great point. The differentiating factor
100%
is huge. Yeah,
because if you just come out with, hey, my coffee is really good quality and it's priced competitively, like good fucking luck. Like it ain't gonna happen. It's just not gonna happen. There's no reason why I would go buy your shit. When there's 84 million other brands out there that offer the exact same.
Yeah. So to be clear, there's 84 million brands, but local fresh coffee, or not even local, but fresh, right? Like
so that's what you're talking about.
It was roasted this week.
So you want to talk about?
You'd only be competing with the fresh
market.
The fresh market.
Okay.
Yeah, which takes the big players out. Because I will never go buy a bag of Starbucks coffee again, right? I used to buy it. I'll never go buy something from the grocery store. That
makes a difference.
It's the difference to me, right? I've elevated my palate, if you want to say, or even if it's just in my mind, it's not even real. I can't buy store-bought coffee anymore. There's a lot of people. There's a couple people even in my office that are like me, right? Really? So I know that there's a big demographic like this. And then what I do find in my opinion, the fresh roasters, the names of the companies are stupid. The names of the coffee are stupid. The marketing is stupid. It just doesn't give me a good experience. Like I don't feel good about buying that. I feel like I'm just like settling every time I buy it. Like the whole picture's off.
Okay, now we're getting somewhere.
Yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I'm just buying it because it's fresh and I don't have any other options.
Interesting.
But everybody I've looked at, I'm like everything's just off here, right? I don't feel like this is my go-to spot. I'll never go anywhere else. I go here and I'm like, yeah, but I'm looking for something else.
Yeah.
And I just have a feeling that there are people looking for just an elevated experience.
So how are you gonna create that experience? Are you talking about the experience when they walk in to be serviced as a customer, or are you talking about the experience of buying the product?
Just more like a luxury experience, but not a luxury price, right? Like a luxury feel to everything about it, because that's how I feel about my coffee, right? Like it's an experience for me, and I don't want to go have like an average experience. Just like if you're buying a luxury car, you walk into a certain dealership, they're going to treat you differently than if you walk into, others.
So that might be a little bit different. If you're talking about local, you know how we were talking about not having a storefront. If you're talking about local, you want to create an experience.
That's just to start though, right? Like the experience, I don't want a storefront like you said, right? It would be in everything. It'd be on the website. It would be on the name of the coffee. Every coffee would have its own name.
Yeah.
The look of the branding. Even if I go to the about page on some of these companies, I'm like, oh my God, what? None of this is inspiring at all. Nothing that you're doing is inspiring. So I know it's just like everything, right? There's a market for that. There's a market for the average. There's a market for slightly above average. I just want to take it to like not super high end luxury because that just whatever, but like that, just that next level kind of where the value is.
So why wouldn't you? Let me ask you this. So if we're not talking about scale, because like if you want to do it locally and you want to do it fresh.
That's just to start. You would be shipping it, right?
Okay.
It roasted on Monday, shipped on Wednesday, for instance, right?
Yeah.
You have a 30-day
shipping.
Yeah, you have a 30-day shelf life. People like me, I'm gonna consume that bag in 30 days. Yeah. Like every time. Yeah. I'll need 2 probably in a month.
Yeah.
So and then there's ways to package it and whatnot to take the air out of the bags and inject nitrogen to keep it fresh, whatever, right? It's all of that. So it would be starting with a local experience, but it's not. I'm not just going to be a local. That would be too small.
Yeah.
Probably wouldn't work.
Yeah. Interesting. Why not do something to the effect of if you think that there's a lot of people that want that experience, want that luxury product, why not go like balls out and just like it's very expensive. It's actually very expensive. Like why wouldn't you just do that? Like for real, like I'm not joking. Like why not? Okay, so say for example, your average cost of a bag is $24. What's wrong with like $49? Like, do you not think people would buy that if it's like the best or absolute premium or tastes great? There's an experience behind. Like you're having a great experience while you're consuming that product. Like, is there not a market for that?
I don't. Because I don't know. That's not who I am.
So I look at this as, and I'm only bouncing ideas.
We're just talking.
I almost feel like the coffee world is akin to like the wine world, right? It's very similar, and the best wines in the world are, or the best, right, quote unquote, or probably the wines or vintages that do the best are the most exclusive and the most expensive.
So I think the reason for that is it'd be difficult to start a business like that. You'd probably have to source like some super rare beans that would be super expensive, and I don't know how big the market is. It's not something. So I want to appeal to like me in the market, and to me, let's say that there's a middle. Which is the right answer. Yeah, it's the right there's
answer.
There's a crappy brand, right? And in the crappy brand, there's a scale from low to high. And then in the mid-range brand, between low-end mid-range and high-end mid-range, then there's luxury. I want to be at the high-end mid-range, right? I just want to do that to the best, where you're still only, you're paying market value, but getting a better experience, because that's what I just can't find locally or online.
So when you say you can't find a good experience, like what exactly are the experiences that you're referring to? Like walk me through an experience that you're just like, it's shit. It's like, tell me without telling me who it is, what they're doing wrong.
Couple of examples, like, okay, I go to the website and the packaging is just horrible.
Okay.
And the names of the coffee doesn't inspire me at all.
Like, how do you want to be inspired by the name?
Just like, it's I don't know. You can't really quantify it. It's just like, it's like they put no effort into it. Okay. It's like they put no thought into the brand, and they just slapped something that makes sense to them but doesn't make sense to the market on it. So, for example, like there's one that I think has a great brand, but they're just a broad scale, and it's Lavazza. They're big, and like one of their espressos is called crema, like creamy. Like, and I'm like, yeah, even looking at that package, it makes me like, oh my God, that's a creamy espresso. That's what I'm looking for. They've branded that properly. And then the packaging
the branding
shows like a nice creamy espresso. Other brands, it's just nothing. It's just like some random name, some random picture on the photo. So it makes me like, well, they don't get it, or they don't, whatever. They're not so concerned about the experience as I am. And I just think that subconsciously this is happening to everybody else, whether they know it or not. And if somebody put all this together in the right package, you could, it's not like they're going to go out of business or anything, but there's a market for what I'm looking for that I can't find anybody is doing it.
So let me ask you this. Are you not able to get pre-roasted products?
You would defeat the purpose because then it's no longer fresh. So you import.
Could you not get like next day imported fresh coffee beans?
Possibly, but then possibly something to look into for sure. You're probably going to take a hit on the margins, I'm guessing.
I mean,
like if you were to not mix your own, if you weren't the wholesaler here, like mixing everything together, your margins would probably go down.
100%. Now, the only reason why I started doing that was because I literally could not fucking find anybody to do it right.
Right.
Like that is literally the reason why. I went through like 3-4 different companies, and I was also always at the mercy of their abilities, their scale, their sourcing.
That's what I think would happen here. And I
just don't know what's involved, right? That's why I'm asking.
It's not that much. It's really just roasting. You import there's coffee beans from all over the world. They all have different profiles, and it's importing them, roasting them to the right temperature and everything else. Like there's a science to it as well, and then marketing and packaging. So in my vision, there's a saying too, like if you sell coffee, you should roast your coffee, right? It's kind of like expected almost.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
And also I think that if this or any other idea did scale, you'd want that in-house. You'd want to control the experience. Like you said, now you're subject to their quality control. You're subject to their shipping. You're subject to their pricing, sourcing, everything else.
Interesting.
But something to think about.
Yeah. Interesting. But yeah, the way that I would start it is I would get a tabletop roaster, do your own pilot runs, get a Shopify store or whatever kind of store, source out your design concepts to, there's plenty of Upwork, Fiverr, you name it. They all do good work.
So true, yeah.
For a fraction of the cost that you're going to pay say a graphics artist or whatever. And that's the way that I would start. I would hand it off. I would hand your product off to people for free. I know it'll cost a little bit in the beginning, but you start developing that. You give people a free bag. Like if you give me a bag, I buy this vanilla hazelnut shit from like I don't even know where, Zares or whatever. I get it from like fucking Instacart. So obviously that's not fresh like what you're talking about. I wouldn't know the difference, to be honest with you. I don't consider myself a connoisseur of coffee
yet, but that's how it starts.
But I love it. I do love it. So if you give me a bag of your coffee and I'm like, holy shit, there is a big difference here because it was made fresh. Well, I'm probably going to buy the next one. So you might have given me one for free, but if I'm buying one a month for the next 10 years.
Oh, for sure. I have no problem. Yeah.
Right?
It makes perfect sense.
So that's
also a little bit of a tester too,
sure,
right? Is this
or hey, like I don't really care for this. It's not vanilla-y enough, or it's not hazelnutty enough, or whatever, right? Whatever the 100%, terminology is, right? So hey, if this was more like this, I would be maybe more opt to. And I'll give you an example too, right? Like I remember I was buying this one type of coffee. It was like this crema based coffee, and I would mix it in because I like the creamy taste of coffee, right, as well. And I would mix it in with like the vanilla hazelnut, but it was giving me this like weird like head feel. Do you know what I'm talking about? Have you ever gotten this from coffee where it's like
so you're mixing different beans?
Yeah, and like grinding it
together.
Yeah. And it was giving me, you know how when you have like too much coffee, it's like this like in your head. You know what I'm talking about? Like
I'm immune.
Do you know?
Now,
but can you understand what I'm talking about? I was getting that, but only from that coffee. I don't know why. I don't know if it was the strength of the beans or if it was the. To be honest with you, I never actually looked into if it had a higher caffeine content from those particular beans or not. I don't know, but it was giving me this like really fucked up feeling. So if you were to give me your beans and it gives me this fucked up feeling before you hitting the mass market with your beans and spending all these advertising costs, don't you think it's prudent for me to be like, hey, Scott, your beans are fucking me up. Like, fix that. Or maybe you got to source different beans because one of every 3 people is going to feel that and never buy again.
I've never heard this before. I think you're an anomaly. But no, either way, giving it to 10, 20,
Yeah.
30 people, getting feedback is invaluable.
For sure.
And I love what you said as well, because my concern was like, okay, well, if you buy this small machine, your margins are coming down. You can only do small batches at a time, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. And you said, well, you're always going to need to do small runs, small
sure.
batches.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you this. Let's say there's a machine that can do 1 kilogram of coffee, which is, let's say, 5 bags. And there's one that can do 20 bags, and there's one that can do 100 bags. Where on that small scale do you think would be the sweet spot?
Whatever fits in your fucking basement. Like
They
for
probably
real.
all would.
Like, I'm not even joking. Like, within reason, right? If you got to carry it downstairs or you got to move it, like that's the right answer.
Yeah. So the biggest that you could, like, let's say they all do, and there's a couple $1,000 difference between each. You know, would you go with the more medium sized, or would you just start
if you have the
small?
capital, probably, and if you're pretty committed to doing this, yeah.
And like I said too, like worst case scenario, I'm roasting my own beans at home because I want to, anyways. You know, so it is kind of a personal thing, regardless.
Yeah.
But
And the way that I would do that is say, for example, this does scale, and you start, you know, you're like, holy shit, I got to get a warehouse now or whatever, and get this massive fucking roaster or whatever they're called. Like there, you could probably make smaller blends and like just sell them for like double the price.
yeah, good
You know
point.
what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like,
on
hey,
the
limited
previous
edition.
machine.
Yeah, this is a limited edition flavor. We're making a limited amount of like 20 bags of this one particular flavor. Say it's like
pumpkin spice for
pumpkin
fall
spice
or
or whatever, man. Like whatever the actual thing is, then that's how I
we'll
would
do that blend that you do with the what is it, caramel and regular coffee, whatever you're doing at home there, blending the two beans.
crema
Crema and hazelnut.
Vanilla hazelnut.
Yeah, maybe we'll call it the Crosby blend.
Yeah. Like, what is it? You just flavor the beans, or you just put flavor?
So I actually
inside of it?
I don't know about flavored beans.
Okay.
I don't like flavored beans.
No?
I haven't found a flavored bean that I liked. I've only tried a couple.
So
but
what do you do to add, do you add flavor in your stuff, or is that like in the form of like the creamer and stuff?
the beans themselves have different flavor profiles depending on where they're grown. In theory,
okay,
right?
okay,
Now
okay.
there are some I'm sure that are added flavor.
So what would be like an example of like, hey, I want like, what are some of the flavors if it's not actually a flavor?
Like if you buy from Ethiopia, it's I don't know if it's actually, but like nutty, fruity. If you buy from here, it's earthy. Colombian
So it's
coffee
not like,
is a little bit different.
So you're not talking about actual flavor.
No, but you could. I'm sure you can add.
Well, I'm assuming these guys do.
They must,
right? If they, like, I'm assuming Ethiopia isn't growing vanilla hazelnut beans, right? Right?
No. Those are additional flavors that are
exactly.
added that you're talking about.
Okay,
Yeah.
so different places from different. So it's just like wine then. It's exactly the same as wine.
It is 100%.
Okay,
And there are millions and millions of people out there that are like me.
Yeah.
That are, like I said, looking for something just a little bit elevated. That sweet spot, right? The $50 bottle of wine or the $40 or $28, $29. But you know that's the one that just stands out. They've got the marketing right. It probably doesn't even taste that much different. But everything's just right about it. The price is right. The marketing's right. The vibe is right. I get a good experience every time I have it. That, to me, is where I want to play.
Interesting.
And I don't know of many people doing it.
Interesting. Like many people locally or many people
Just that I can find, right?
I see.
You know, you can find coffee online and stuff like that, but
Are you willing to try those people out, or is there a hesitation for trying them out?
the hesitation is just I hop on there, I don't like it,
Interesting.
but I should.
like the way it looks.
Yeah,
and
just
stuff like that.
just the vibe. Everything's is just kind of not what I'm looking for.
Interesting.
So just kind of piecing all those. They're all good in their own ways, but piecing it all together into like a different vision, and they can all be. Everybody can be successful too, right? It's not like I'm gonna put them out of business because my model is so much better. It's just there's a different market that I can't seem to find.